Hi there, welcome back to this series on Learning React. In this video, we will be exploring React Hooks. React Hooks is a feature provided in React version 16.1 and above. So what it means is if you have React Hook version 16.1 and above, then you can use this feature. React Hooks provides you with features within a class-based component. These features can be accessed in a function-based component. Things like lifecycle methods, managing states, and all that. React Hooks brings live all those features to a function-based component. And the rules for using hooks. One of the rules is React Hooks should be named with very first prefix used and followed by the hook name. Right there you can see I have some examples right there, which of course are built-in React Hooks function aside other ones. You can also create your own custom-based React Hooks. Our second rule is React Hooks should be used in the function at the very top level of that function. Now to understand what React Hooks is in summary, let's jump into Visual Studio and let's see how to work with React Hooks. So right here I have Visual Studio open and I have the Learn React application from our last video. The very first thing we'll do right there is create a new file. So I'm going to click on the plus icon right there and let's name this file example underscore hooks, and I'm gonna have underscore, let's have useContext underscore context dot html. Now once we're done with that, we need to include our structural tags. So I'm going to copy that template from the previous file. So I'm going to be using example underscore JSX. So control highlight all that I have there. Back to example underscore hooks. And I'm going to paste that all there. Scroll the way up. Let's rename the title to have this as Learning React Hook. And I'm going to scroll the way down to the script tag. And let's get rid of some of the constant there. So I'm going to get rid of the constant name, constant temp, and constant parent temp. And quickly, I'm going to create a function or a component app. And so for now, leave that empty for now. Also, I'm going to create a function, second function. Let's have that as person. I'm going to leave that empty as well. So where I have render, React DOM the render, I'm going to make reference to app. Okay, so what we're going to do right there now is going to explore our very first hook, which is the use context. And before we do that, we need to first of all create a context. Now what is a context? A context really contains data that can be shared among components. This context can be provided or published via the parent component and sub components defined within or referenced within that base component or parent component can consume or subscribe to that context. So let's create that context. So I'm going to create a constant. Let's have a constant. Let's name that app context, capital A, and that will be equal to react.create context. And right in there we can pass in default value. So I'm going to pass in null right in there. And below that, let's create on that constant. Let's have this as data, and that will be equal to, let's have an object. And this object is going to contain two properties. Let's have name right there, John, and let's have age property, and right there we're going to have 19. The next thing we'll do right there is provide or publish this context. Now to do that, we will probably do that within a parent component. So in this example, we're going to be using app as our parent component. So within app, what we could do is we can return a JSX. So I'm going to return, let's have a bracket open and close. Right in there, I'm going to have my app context. So app context tag dot provider. So app context provider tag. So every context has a provider object. So what we could do is, before we reference any child component, I'm going to specify the value attribute. So the value attribute is where we provide the data that will be shared or passed down to any subscriber, in this case, our child component. Now, just in between the app context provider, we can make reference to the person component. So person component. And the next thing we'll do right there is we need to consume the data provided by the app context provider. And the person component can consume it. It's a child component defined just within the app context provider. So what we could do right here is back to the person component. What I'm going to do is create a constant named person context. And once I've done that, I'm going to assign the value React. So React class dot will have useContext. So useContext is the hook that is used to reference or use a particular app context. So just in between the bracket right there, I'm going to pass in app context. And once we've done that, we can use the person context. So what we could do right there is return a JSX as well too. So return, so let's return bracket, and right in there I'm going to have a div for that. And within that div, let's have two p tags. So I'm going to have a p tag. I'm going to close that tag right there, and I'm going to have name text, then have curly bracket open and close, and right in there let's have a person context dot name. And below that p tag, let's have a second p tag, close that p tag, and let's have age column, then let's have curly brackets. I want to have a person context dot age, and that's how you consume an app context. So I'm going to right click and open to view this in my browser. Right, you can see we have the output. So you can see we have name John, we have age 19. So this is how you use context. So the very first we did basically was we gave the context first, then we provided or published the context. Then within the child component, we use that context. So when should you use a context? So if you're dealing with a component and you have trees of nested component, in such cases, you might want to use props to pass in data. It might get really deep in the sense that you have nested components and you might need to pass in data until it gets to the very last component. And to avoid that, what we can do is we can create a context, and that component that requires that context can use that context. As long as it's a child or a grandchild of the app context, then that component can use that context. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next one.